Let's look at which jobs have priority when it comes to permanent residency for Canada. My name is Rita Benkalti, and I'm the immigration consultant at North Horizon Immigration Consulting, Inc. In June of 2023, the Canadian government announced 6 categories who would have priority when requesting Canadian permanent residency through the Express Entry program. What are the categories? There are 6 categories. One of them is the French language proficiency. This means people who are fluent in French. The 5 other categories are different types of industries, jobs. One of them is science, technology, math, and engineering. That is one category called the STEM category. The other category is transportation. That involves many different jobs in the transportation industry. We have the healthcare industry, the agricultural and food production industry, and the trades industry. And when we talk about trades in Canada, we mean the types of jobs that are necessary on a construction site. What happens if you are not part of these categories? You don't speak French and you don't work in one of these industries. Does that mean that you can no longer apply through Express Entry? No, that's not what it means. You can still apply to Express Entry. You'll be part of the general category, which means everybody else. And it also means you'll probably need more points to be selected than the previous categories. Why do you need more points? Simply because there's more competition. So there will be more people putting their profiles on the Express Entry pool of candidates who are in the general category. Therefore, to compete, you will need more points. How do you get more points? There's plenty of ways of getting more points. That would be something we can discuss in another video, but usually it can be a combination of first coming to Canada to study, getting a work permit, having a job offer, and thanks to this job offer with a Canadian company, you could get more points. People who come to Canada on a work permit to operate their own businesses, if you start your own business or you purchase a business in Canada, this is also another way of getting more points in the Express Entry profile that would qualify you under the general category, and you could be selected in the future. What are the criteria to qualify under the special categories? For the French category, you need to be fluent in French. You need to pass an exam that will show that your level of French is 7 on the Canadian language benchmark. For the 5 categories that involve the industries, you need to have in the last 3 years, 6 months of work experience in one of these categories. Express Entry will look at the last 10 years of work experience. You don't have to have worked for 10 years in that category. However, in the last 3 years, you need 6 months consecutive in one of the jobs listed in the category that is a priority category. Now, how do you know if your job, although it's in the industry, how do you know if your job qualifies in the category? The good news is it's very clearly listed in the Canadian government's website, and we're going to take a look at which are the jobs that qualify for each category. Here we are on the Canadian website looking at the categories in more detail. For the French language, as we said, there is no job requirement. It's about the language. You still need to qualify as a skilled worker or as a Canadian experience class for just getting into Express Entry, but there's no restriction as to what your job should be. Now let's look at the other categories. For example, healthcare occupation. When you click on the little circle next to healthcare occupations, it will open up a list of which NOC codes are accepted. So not because you work in the healthcare industry, does it mean automatically that you are part of this category? You really have to look at what your job is and does it match one of these NOC codes. So in this case, there are 4 pages of NOC codes, so you can go through the list. This is true for every single one of these categories. Science, technology, engineering, and math has its own list. And trades occupations also have their own list. And it's the same thing for transportation and for agriculture. So transportation list is a little shorter and agriculture is even shorter. There's only 3 jobs in agriculture that would qualify. And so before you send your profile in Express Entry, make sure that your job for at least 6 months in the last 3 years matches one of the NOC codes for the categories listed. Now let's take a look at the actual points you need to be invited. This is filmed in June 2024, so the last invitation that we have here on the government website was May 31st, 2024. As you can see in this list, the first thing the government does is they will list the category that has been invited. Canadian Experience Class is a special category for people who have worked as an employee in a Canadian company for at least 1 year. Provincial nominee program are people who usually have a job offer in Canada under a provincial program. Let's take a look at the categories. As you can see, for example, the French language category was invited with a minimum score of 410 points. In comparison to the general category, which is everyone else who's not part of one of these 6 priority categories, they are competing at much higher points. The person with the least points who got invited had 529 points, more than 100 points than the person who speaks French, for example. And if we keep going, the STEM category, 491 points, in comparison to the general categories that are above 500 points. So it's the same thing. Every single category, transportation, 430, agriculture, 437, healthcare, 422. As you can see, the special categories don't require as many points as the general category, which is everybody else who doesn't speak French and who's not part of those 5 industries that the government is trying to really promote because we need more of those workers in Canada. Therefore, if you qualify under one of these categories, I really highly recommend that you book a consultation with me so we can look at your profile, see if you would hit the amount of points to kind of compete. And I say kind of because these numbers are only true for the day that the invitation was issued. We can only look at what happened in the past. For 1 year now that the program has been active, we cannot necessarily predict what's going to happen in the future, but at least it gives us a little bit of an idea of where you stand. If you would like to know if you qualify for the permanent residency program under Express Entry, book a consultation on our website, and we will review your professional profile and plan a strategy for you and your family to immigrate to Canada.